In the entire history of writing, as you said, right? Like the entire mythological sort of history that we have, when did women lose that agency, or when did the interpretation change? Because clearly at some point in time, um, they were not just objects of desire or faithful sort of sidekicks, let's put it like that.
See, we should be clear. When we're talking about women, women are not one group. There are multiple types of groups. These women we are talking about, faithful and all, are really elite women, propertied women, women with property. So they want, I always tell people in lands where there were land was less. In those lands, only one son was allowed to marry. Every other son either to share the wife or become a monk. Because there was not enough land. If every son got married, then the kitchen will be divided, the house will be divided. But in rich agricultural lands, like let's say the Ganga plains, itni zameen hai ki fark nahi padta hai. So you can have 10 wives and they can have 10 children, and then you have 100 children, you can divide the land in 100, you have enough. Very different. Right? The mountain ke log, jo Uttarakhand mein hai, so you'll see in the mountains, there are people where polygamy happens, polygyny, where the one wife will have many husbands, because you don't want to divide the land. But in more alluvial plains, like the Ganga river basin, you will have polygamy. That means one man will have many wives.
Many wives, yeah.
Then there are, as I said, merchant communities where one single woman will have multiple husbands. So property is deciding these things. But imagine labor class people. वहाँ fidelity की importance क्यों है? Because you want the woman to keep, you want labor and land. So the rules were very different for the peasant. The rule was very different from the trader's daughter. The rule was very different from the king's daughter. The rule was very different for the Brahmin's daughter. Rules were very different for the apsaras, the courtesans. Courtesans in India had both agency and were denied agency. They were both. It was like they knew music, dance, they were hospitality industry, literally. They were also providing sexual services, but they were also singers, dancers, musicians, fashion, everything came from there, which is what they tell in the story repeatedly. What you don't realize, they were not allowed to own land. They had mobile assets, they had jewellery, and they would pass it on to their daughters, never to the sons. They didn't care for sons. They did not care for sons at all. It was only daughters. So it was a very different structure of power. And for thousands of years in India, these were the only women who were educated, who had agency. But what was their social status? Because until the British came, they were very powerful. They were not the way they show it in these teleserials, because people are uncomfortable with this space. There's a glamorous nature of this world, but the patriarchal gaze can't stand the fact of an independent agent who says, I will choose my lovers. These were independent women who chose their lovers.
There are so many stories, even in the book, where you've said that there were so many women who actually...
So these were rich women. They were very, very rich women who chose lovers. And the poor poet who wanted to get into her house did not get access, because she would say that, you don't give me money. You're a great poet, but paise uske paas hai. So now he can write poetry and says these women are horrible women. And they will write these epics where all these women are evil women. Because you will never get access, because, they have also to run a business. Who pays the bills? The poet doesn't pay the bills. So the Nawab pays the bills. So they have bills to pay. So they'll say, okay, in a public ceremony, everybody can come and listen to me. I have no problems. But I will give, these cultures existed in India till 1857. They funded much of the 1857 uprising, which is why the British hated them. They said these women are very powerful. They have access to money. They have access to information. Wipe them out. Destroy them completely. But when you read the Buddhist scriptures, when you read Milinda Panna, they say that Ganga flows in the opposite direction, and they said, why does Ganga flow in the opposite direction? They said it's because of a courtesan called Bindumati. And then Ashoka goes to Bindumati and says, how is it that the Ganga flows in the opposite direction? She says, because I am honest, I have ethics. What is your ethics? He says, it doesn't matter who comes to my house. If they pay my fee, I give them their service. You can be the king, you can be a potter, you can be a weaver. I don't care for your social status. if you give the fee, I will give you the service. This is beautiful capitalism.
Agreed.
Her service happens to be the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
And because of the patriarchal gaze, that business apparently is not right. It's like saying vegetarian, owning an abattoir or owning a fishery is not right. It's just a service. She provides the only service she was allowed to have, because she was not allowed to own land. She was only allowed to give hospitality services, music, entertainment and hospitality. Music, dance, glamour, fashion, sex. To whoever came, whenever they came, whatever the money, but she had all the money, she would give it to her daughters. It was a different culture. Now, can we look at it, or should we look at it as, oh, these were, because when you read the Tamil epics, which were written 2000 years ago, they talk about the nun who has no man in her life, and she's a teacher. There is the faithful wife who has a single man in her life. And then there is the courtesan who has many men in her lives. She come and go, come and go. All three are given equal status. It's seen as part of life. Nobody says them as better or worse. Achhi ladki, buri ladki. No, none of that. There's no purity and impurity. Right?
So the concept of fidelity, chastity, none of that.
For the middle, she has, see, the woman who has the highest respect is the one with the least freedom.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Highest is this faithful wife, because she's not got agency. She has sacrificed her agency and surrendered to the husband, and therefore she is highly respected. The woman with agency is adored, admired and all that, but she will never get the status of the faithful wife. And the nun who wanders and can travel everywhere in the world never gets pleasure. She has no pleasure, right? She can't sing and dance and enjoy herself, because then she becomes the courtesan. So you see, and in life we know that, right? Everybody doesn't get everything.
Yeah.
So I'm saying the women have been seen differently.
Yeah.
And again, these are all elite women. Please understand, what about laborers? What about the peasants? What about the farming women, the landless laborers? You know, so these are stories that exist in our culture. They're making you aware of different ways of looking at it. But we are not allowed to look at it. We are not allowed to see today when a single woman wants to have many lovers, what is the word they use? They use the same word, derogatory language is used.
Yeah.
We don't see it as, oh, she's a single woman, she has lovers, what's the big deal? But to be fair, if a single man has many women coming, it's not that our society looks upon him, they'll say, acha aadmi nahi hai. Shadishuda nahi hai. Even if a man in our country doesn't marry, they'll say, wo shaadi nahi hai. Kyun nahi kiya? So, the patriarchy works at different ways in different people. The only way a single man can survive is by saying that I am a brahmachari. Then you're okay. He can't be a single man. He can be a celibate man.
Yeah.
But he can't be a single man. Right? So these are ideas that I want people to think about, read about. I'm not trying to prescribe a lifestyle. I'm saying, be aware the world has many social constructs.
Yeah.
With space over space and time.